Public Q&A presents Ask Reddit question. What's something unexplainable that you've experienced? Serious? Less crazy than the other stories on this thread, but one time, I was at the servo filling my car up at night time, and there was a hospital across the road. A man with no shirt on wearing proper suit pants and formal leather shoes ran from the dark across the road into the servo. He was in there for 5 minutes, then sprinted back into the dark. I walk in to pay for my petrol and the guy serving tells me that the random guy in the suit pants paid for my $50 tank of petrol. I had so many questions. What a kind stranger. With words like servo and petrol you must be a fellow Aussie. Yes. I completely forgot that those terms are exclusively Australian, or at least that servo is. I think a few countries use the term gas instead of petrol. Wholesome spook. Did you ask what else the man did while he was in the servo? I mean, if he only paid for your petrol then that's passing strange, but if he was also paying for something else maybe he had to pay for you so he could pay for himself, and was in a hurry. Or who knows, there might have been a wager of some sort, or a dare, where he had to go into a servo half naked and pay for someone else's petrol, either because he'd lost the wager or on the dare. The dare explanation actually sounds really plausible. It isn't less crazy TBH. I bought one pair of Bluetooth earbuds about 6 months ago. I received one pair. About 4 months ago, I went to use them, and they wouldn't auto-connect to my phone. Weird. I paired them and there were 2 pairs now. Later I found my other pair sitting on my desk. I've been quarantining alone. No idea where the extra set came from. That is weird. Were they identical? As in same brand and color? Yep. Both Jabra Elite 75s. You accidentally picked up someone else's thinking it's yours and brought it home. Case closed. I haven't been around anyone to do that though. Homie, you just IRL duped some shit. But I didn't even drop it on the ground and hit Alt plus F4. Ghosts, then. Ghosts, I definitely don't need you to duplicate my record collection so I can sell the rare ones for a huge return. Wink wink. When I was around 9 years old I found 2 plush toys that looked like black cats. They were second-hand, and were the only 2 in the shop. I am a cat freak and adored them. But so did my younger siblings, twins. My mum just gave them to my siblings and told me to stop whining. I was livid. I had bought them for myself with change I had busked for. So unfair. Then, out of nowhere a third cat appeared. Exact match. And my older sister even went back to the shop, and the owner just thought we were crazy. There definitely never was a third cat. To this day, I have no idea how that happened. My mum isn't the thoughtful kind and she kind of always acted like a dick when I was upset, so I am 100% sure she didn't try and get one for me to cheer me up or whatever. She's more the forget my birthday than hit me in the face because I asked about it type. I just think that some guardian angel got me the cat. Or well, I want to believe, smiley face. Maybe you had some fairly odd parents. Maybe. What a lovely thought. Smiley face. How infuriating. I'm sorry your mom treated you that way, good thing it all worked out in the end. I was stopped for the night at a truck stop in the desert, 60 miles east of El Paso, TX. This truck stop only has lights around the store and fuel pumps. The truck parking area is only lit by any headlights that are left on. I get to bed at about 2,200 thinking it'll be a nice quiet night. At around 0230, I wake up to a tapping on my truck, like someone was trying to wake me up. I ignore it and try to go back to sleep, but the tapping gets louder and louder and eventually turns into the sound similar to someone beating their hand on my door and cab. I get out of bed and open the curtains to the side I heard the sound coming from and there was nothing there. I open the curtains on the other side and nothing there either. There was no trucks on either side of me. So I throw my shoes on, grab my machete and flashlight and go outside to see what the hell was going on. There was nothing, no footprints, no paw prints, absolutely nothing there. I get back in my truck and turn in my side markers, so I am somewhat illuminated. Close the doors, lock them, and run my seatbelts through the door handle and buckle them in, to add essentially another lock to both doors. I go back to bed and wake up at 0630. The sun is starting to come out, so I go inside for some coffee and breakfast before heading out. Other truck drivers were in there and experienced the same thing I did that night, with no answers as to what it was. I finish my breakfast and nope the fuck out of there. TLDR, shit gets crazy at night in the desert. That seatbelt double locking idea is fucking genius. If I can't pay my rent thanks to COVID and have to sleep in my car, I am doing that. I hope the best for you, fellow traveler. May your roads lead to warm sands. That is spooky. I love the seatbelt / door locking method, gonna keep that one in mind for if it's ever needed. I like that you just happen to have a machete. If you don't have a car knife, get you a car knife. Legal in all 50 states. A few weeks before my granddad died in April, I started wearing 2 rings I had inherited from a family member on a chain around my neck. I've had them for years and always wear them when I feel like I need a bit of luck or support. Makes me feel as if someone is looking out for me even though I don't really believe in the afterlife or the supernatural. I knew he was sick, so I'd not long started wearing them again, only I'd had to put them on a chain this time, because the uniform policy in work meant I couldn't wear them as I usually did on my finger. The clasp on the chain can be quite stiff to open, so I'd just throw it over my head with the rings attached because it's long enough to not have to open. So the rings and the chain had been together for a few weeks at this point without me ever opening the clasp because there was no need. So I was in work with another colleague about 2 feet away from me. I had the rings tucked well down my shirt, hanging right around heart level, my uniform zipped up over them, a plastic apron and my gloves on. I'm a nurse. I was busy doing something, so my hands weren't anywhere near the rings, and I wasn't even thinking about them. There wasn't any way I could have touched them or got them caught on anything. Then I felt something cold touch my stomach, and the next thing I knew, one of the rings had dropped onto the floor. I was confused at how it happened and thought maybe the chain had broken, even though it's quite sturdy, and didn't want to lose it, so I took my apron and gloves off and pulled the chain out of my shirt. The chain was intact and still clasped tightly together, and the other ring was still on it. So somehow, one ring had come cleanly off the chain without the other one falling off, and with the chain still clasped together. My colleague was just staring at me like WTF, and I am not really a believer in the supernatural, like I said, so I just cracked a joke saying I hope that wasn't a sign or someone trying to tell me something, and laughed it off. Not 5 minutes later, I got the call to say my granddad had deteriorated and I needed to come home. I left work that day to care for him, and 2 weeks later he died. I know there's got to be an explanation for it, but part of me doesn't want to know it because the mystery makes me feel like maybe I was actually being looked out for. I wear the rings on my finger now because I can't shake the feeling that there was something more to that little mystery than the logical side of my brain wants to believe. And fuck the uniform policy. If anyone calls me out on it, I'll tell them a ghost told me to wear them. I got my mom's engagement ring after she died. I was taking the ring off in the bathroom. The toilet lid was up and the ring slipped out of my hand. I heard it hit the water. I ran over and saw the water ripple but no ring. I figured it slipped down the pipe. I was heartbroken and angry at myself. A few days later, I needed something out of the cabinet under the sink, which was next to the toilet. I moved a can out of the way and guess what I found on the floor of the cabinet? Yep, my mom's engagement ring. I like to think my mom had something to do with it. And I never take jewelry off in the bathroom anymore. Just to explain, there was a door on the cabinet, and it was closed. So there is no way it bounced in there. And the ring was behind a can that was at the front of the cabinet. Thanks for saving the ring, Mom. When I was a kid, I was washing dishes and dropped the sponge I was using. I looked down and it was gone. Looked all around our tiny kitchen, and it was nowhere. On a whim, I opened the door to the cabinet under the sink. The sponge was right there, still wet from washing the dishes. There is no way it bounced through the door, and yet there it was. So I totally believe your story. We had a family ghost that liked to play pranks on us, so that shit was only one of the weird things I experienced. When I was 9 or 10, we had a big family reunion at my great-aunt's big Victorian house that her family grew up in, which she inherited. I got bored though because there weren't other kids there my age, so I went exploring through the house, and found a check writing machine in the upstairs office or library kind of room. I remember the machine was black and gold and had lots of little levers where you'd select the individual numbers, then pull down on another lever to stamp the check. I'd put in pieces of paper that were on the desk and look at the numbers stamped on it. I was playing with that when I very clearly heard another kid in the hallway say, "You're not supposed to play with guns, Bill." My name wasn't Bill, and I wasn't playing with guns. I remember saying, "I am not." Then some moments passed and I got curious about another kid maybe my age being there, so I hopped up and looked into the hallway to find him, but there was nobody there. And nobody around my age downstairs or outside where everybody else was either. I figured at the time it was maybe some neighbor kid who ran out. I didn't really think about it again until I was 18 or 19, and my mother told me her father, Grandpa Bill, my great-aunt's brother who grew up there too, had accidentally shot his friend in that house when he was a kid, when playing with his father's pistol. Then when I was in my 40s, I was driving my great-aunt somewhere, now in her 90s, and I asked where in the house Bill had that accident, and she said in that upstairs office. I'm not religious, but that just seems too specific. Maybe it's a wild coincidence. I still can't explain it all these years later, and it's the only thing that keeps bugging me in my life. Recently, I was on the couch watching something, and I heard a crash from my washer and dryer room. My cat also shot up and looked in the direction of the door. It sounded like a broom fell over, or maybe one of the plastic tubs. Freaked me out as I already don't really like that room in the first place, plus it was very late at night, and I live alone. Also because of the pull string door that leads to the creepy-ass attic. Decided I was not going to be like every idiot in a horror movie, and investigate what the noise was. I literally sat there on my couch for hours. The next day, I decided I had enough courage to take a peek, and literally saw nothing touched. Both brooms were still propped up against the wall. All the plastic tubs were sitting perfectly. I have no idea what that noise was, and I don't really care to find out. I love that you didn't check it out. I am the same way. Ghosts and poltergeists would be so disappointed with me because I would never play along. I live in an old cottage. Every few months, I get the odd bang, or odd things happen. I just say nice try, back to bed now. That was my attitude in our old house. Random bang, or something flipped off a shelf or counter. Cute. Earlier this year my friend and I were on the sofa watching Peaky Blinders, and a framed picture flew off my bookshelf. We both looked over and then went back to the TV. Nice try, but we like this show. Same, honestly, you just get used to it after a while. Had a door slam in my face, I opened it and something pulled it closed again. I just went, can I help you? If not, get out of the way, and it swung open. Don't let them mess with you, it's your house too. Bitch, pay some rent before you go slam my doors around. Not me. Screw ghosts. You go into that room and rip a huge fart. Fight fire with fire. They think they are all invisible and air and stuff. Fart at M. See how they like their ghost bodies permeated with methane. The Geneva Convention doesn't extend to the afterlife, so you're good to go with cross-plane chemical warfare. I had a friend of mine experience something similar. She had a lot of paranormal experiences happen to her, but this one included her mom. They both heard all the dishes crash in the kitchen, like glass breaking, pots clanging all over the floor. They went into the kitchen together and nothing was on the floor. Nothing moved. I asked her mom about it, and she said the exact same thing that my friend said. They could have been messing with me, but with her track record, I don't doubt it. This must be a not uncommon phenomenon. My wife and I would experience it in our old house. We'd be upstairs and there'd be a tremendous crash downstairs. I'd run downstairs thinking a bookcase had fallen over only to find nothing out of sorts. Things would occasionally flip off shelves and counters, but that's a different story. I had a similar experience in my new house. I have a lot of plastic, rectangular tubs that I use to move my items, and one night, when I was here alone, I swear I heard one of them fall, so I looked in all the rooms, and nothing was out of place. Freaked me out for a while. When I first moved into our house, my mom gifted me with a snake plant. My cat and I have been together for 4 years, and I had never once seen her puff up in fear. We had just moved in and my husband went to work at the crack of dawn, so I was up before the sun. I went to feed my cat, and set her up on top of the dryer where she has her meals. She stared into the dark hallway behind me and immediately puffed up. I was so fucking freaked out, and went through the whole house trying to find whatever it was that triggered her. Then I discovered a big chunk of the snake plant on the floor, full of little teeth marks. Snake plants make cats hallucinate. I took the plant to work and my cat hasn't puffed up since. I think the scary thing about this is you can probably never imagine what your cat was seeing at that moment in time. Poor kitty. If my kid is in the house and asleep, I'll check out random noises because I'll be damned if some paranormal being is gonna get him, but if I am alone on the rare occasion he's at my parents' house, ghost face, can just chill in whatever cupboard he's stuck in because fuck that. If my husband is away, hell yeah, I am varying up and checking on the locks and the kids if I hear some weird noise. Full beast mode. If he's home, though, I am like you go get killed by Dracula, brew. I'm a hide here under the covers. It's pathetic. Mama v Ghost has no hope. Woman home alone, ya nah, see you on the other side, friends. Edit, by woman I mean me. Edit 2, first award ever, thank you. Shut the front door, this exact thing happened to me in my house. I was home alone one night, eating some food at the kitchen table. Big loud bang from the back bedrooms. The dog immediately stood up, but put his tail between his hind legs and ran beside me. This is a Doberman and he's no scaredy cat. I wait and wait but don't hear anything, so I grab a knife and walk with the dog behind me to check out the rooms. Nothing there, nothing fallen, nothing moved. I called my brother/roommate and told him to get home immediately. He checked the whole house, including the scary basement I was not going to check out. He saw nothing. We've had a lot of weird things happen since then, like sounds coming from the garage that someone is moving stuff around but nobody is out there. I didn't believe in ghosts until we moved into this house, but now I do. Very unsettling. I have 2 similar experiences. We used to have about 10 plastic jerrycans that we'd take up to my in-laws at the weekend to fill them with their natural spring water. The water in our house was connected to the mains, and was gross at the best of times. But that's beside the point. We'd have the empty jerrycans in the hall, which was fully tiled, downstairs in the hall. One night as I was about to doze off, there was this mighty crashing sound, as if someone had just kicked all of the empty jerrycans all over the tiled floor. What a racket it was. Didn't have the heart to go downstairs to check and hid under my duvet sweating like a pig with stress, but in the morning I found the cans were exactly as I left them the night before, neatly lined up against the wall. This happened twice, and I've never been able to explain it. Years ago, I went to the movies with my mother, and we decided to see another movie afterwards. It was a simpler time, LOL. So my mom was calling my dad to tell him we would be home late. As she was on the phone with him, my phone rang. I looked at the screen and it said my mother's name. She definitely wasn't just fucking with me, because she showed me her screen, connected to my house phone. We had just seen a horror film, and I was too afraid to pick it up. Kinda wish I did, though. But in retrospect, it was probably a number spoofing bot. Not sure those were as popular over a decade ago though, so I have no idea. This happens at my house from time to time. We'll get a call to the home phone from the home phone. The first time it happened it threw me off because I was watching TV, and caller ID said my mom was calling the house, and she was in the other room. It kinda happens to mom's cell phone, but in a different way. Her phone will say friend X is calling, but when she answers, it's friend Y. And no, those guys aren't friends with each other, so there's 0% chance they're using each other's phones. She even checked her contact list to see if one of the contacts was messed up, but both of them look normal. But in retrospect, it was probably a number spoofing bot. Yeah, I once got a call from my boss, and it was an automated spam call. I don't know if they just spoofed a random number in my area code, and it happened to be my boss number, or if they somehow had access to my contacts. My coworker has gotten phone calls from himself too, lol. TLDR, I had a prophecy of my own death that I avoided. I was 9 years old and I had a dream that I got home from a friend's house, and as I opened the door, out of the corner of my eye I see a gray rat scamper along the side of my house, so I stand there a second just watching it. Then I look down and a rattlesnake was right next to my leg. Of course I panic and step back, but the snake strikes and bites my leg. I scream and roll around and my leg burns. Even in the dream it burned. My father comes out and sees me on the ground, and I tell him I was bit by a rattlesnake. He rushes me to the hospital. Time gets real malleable, and I don't remember traveling to the hospital or checking in, but I end up on a bed and very distinctly getting a couple doses of antivenom, but it is too late. I die, and I see my mother crying while holding my hand. I watch for a few minutes, then I wake up. Weird ass nightmare, right? But nothing to freak about. So I go about my day, play with my friends and whatnot. When I was walking home that evening, I just randomly thought about my dream, so I stopped a bit away from the door and actually looked around where the snake was in the dream. Motherfucker was exactly where I dreamt he was and basically staring at me, but never does rattle. Then a fucking rat goes darting down the side of my house. I change course and go to the front door instead. I tell my dad about the snake, he goes out and kills it with a shovel. I haven't had another dream that vivid of the future since. Shit still freaks me out though. This type of precognition, or whatever it may be, happens to me monthly. It's very bizarre. When I notice it outright, like a déjà vu, I always say universe, as if I am actively acknowledging that I noticed a change. I'll have extremely lucid dreams of just a day in the life, then years later I catch myself reliving the exact scenario. After decades, I've tried changing outcomes of what I dreamed in reality when I catch these moments. Sometimes it works, and had always felt like a positive thing. The older I get, the less frequent they have become. This is the most articulate I've felt I could be about this right now for some reason, so I really wanted to share. Once I had a dream where I was picking up the paper from the porch, and a piece on page 1 said something like the lions are in town, and thought when I woke up what a stupid dream. The next morning I picked up the paper from the porch, and a piece on page 1 said something like the lions are in town. The capitalization was indeed different, but that was pretty much the only difference. This is the only time anything like this has happened to me. When I was a kid, pre-teens, I would see a silhouette of a person standing on my doorway from time to time late at night. The figure never entered the room, but just kinda stood there and didn't move. Normally I'd just hide under the covers because its presence terrified me. I know that it wasn't a dream because my brother, who is the same age, can verify that he often saw the same thing. Because my brother saw it too, and oftentimes the same night, that disproved that it could have been my imagination, or a hallucination, or even a dream. Also, the figure was taller than anyone else who lived in the house, and I also saw it at my grandparents' house. So it couldn't have been someone in my family either. I haven't seen it in years now, but I never really found an explanation for it. OMG, this happened to me too, but I didn't have any siblings to back me up on it. For me it was some tall bald guy in an old Timmy War outfit. Low-key kinda similar. From what I could make out it looked like the figure was in a long trench coat, and like a fedora or something. Like a 40s detective or something. That's pretty interesting though. Did you ever talk to anyone about it? Hey, there seems to be a worldwide phenomena about a shadow man with a brimmed hat. Google it. I think it's linked to sleep paralysis. Although I was wide awake when I saw him. Yo, that's wild AF. I totally feel ya. I could totally move and everything. And especially since my brother saw it too, surely it couldn't have been sleep paralysis. But it is strange to me many people see such similar things unexplained. My sister and I had an experience like this. We lived in a house for a couple of years where weird things would happen. I would often feel like a large man was standing in doorways looking at me. He wore a brown coat, and I always felt like he was in the Air Force, although I couldn't tell you why. I didn't say anything to my sister because I didn't want to scare her. Years later we started talking about that house, and she told me about the man she saw, who wore a brown coat, and was in the Air Force. That's exactly what happened with my brother and I too. That's pretty crazy though. Did you have anyone in your family that was in the Air Force? I'm not a very big believer on spiritual stuff, but how else to explain that other than a past family member's spirit, or maybe someone from a past life? There is no explanation I can find for this stuff. Nope. No one we know or knew was in the Air Force. I'm an atheist and she's agnostic, and neither of us can explain some of the things that happened in that house. Never had anything like it happen after we moved out. My mother told me that when I was a toddler, I'd sometimes point to an empty corner in the living room and giggle. When she asked me what I was laughing at, I told her it was a big black man in green. We're white. It didn't seem menacing to my mom, so she let it go. I have no memory of this at all. I swear I saw something like this in the corridor of my house when I was a kid. Fully black, no discernible facial features apart from eyes, and to this day I remember it vividly. I placed a glass upside down into the dishwasher. I walked away and boom, it shatters into a million super tiny shards. Dishwasher hadn't been used recently and the glass was room temperature. I had to replace the dishwasher because of how tiny the shards were, could never get them all out. This one I might be able to answer. It was a random event due to an improper finish. LOL, I'm a glass blower. Most dishwasher-safe dishes can't be blown because the heat cycle of a dishwasher damages the anneal or finish. Glass blowers anneal glass to let the glass cool without stress. It lets glass take a ding and not shatter. No blown glass is dishwasher safe since the heat cycle is actually enough to start stressing glassware and results in explosions of slivers at random times. The same happens if a manufactured dishwasher-safe glass doesn't get a perfect finish. The glass is more resistant to heat, but if the anneal process wasn't just right, the glass is a bit brittle. Heating and cooling it in previous wash cycles would stress it out. If the glass was blown or the manufacturing process wasn't quite perfect, for a normal dishwasher-safe glass, it can result in pretty much random shattering. It was setting it down and letting it settle in the dishwasher rack that put just the right amount of stress on the glass that was already overstressed from previous washes and caused it to shatter. About 9 years ago, I was searching our file cabinet for a document I needed. I had piles of papers all over the bed, searched for an hour meticulously. Could not find it. Suddenly, the TV across the room, which is not on, makes a clicking noise. I stop what I am doing, look up and over at the TV. I see nothing out of the ordinary, so I turn back to the pile of papers. And the document I had been searching for is right on top, like it was placed there. I looked up, said thank you, and put away the papers I didn't need. Mildly infuriating that the ghost waited for an hour before handing you the document. Thanks, person of the TV. This guy, probably. I think I've shared this before, but here we go. As a kid, I had an imaginary friend who I would play with a lot. I had few real friends, but I was also more of an outcast in daycare and kindergarten, so sometimes, that imaginary friend was all I had. My mother said I'd always describe him as very similar looking. When I was around preschool age, my mother said we needed to talk about my friend, and I said that I am fine with keeping Joshua around because I was scared of starting school alone. Her face just froze in shock, and she never brought it up again. I didn't realize why until my grandma explained years later that I had a twin brother who didn't make it, and my parents were planning on naming him Joshua. The only logical explanation I have is that I picked it up when I was very little, but my grandma said that my parents literally never talked about it because they didn't cope well with the loss at all. It's still very strange. Even with his passing, you were still able to grow up and play with your brother for a couple years. This is as scary as it is delightful and fascinating. Just because your parents didn't discuss it with your grandma doesn't mean they didn't talk about their loss privately. And kids pick up on a lot of things their parents don't realize. I am betting you heard his name from an early age, maybe more than once. I agree with this. I have siblings who are like 15 years younger than me. I know, but my mom likes to talk to me about grown-up family gossip, but I think she doesn't realize they are listening to every detail. It amazes me how much they are like sponges and even understand the obscure references we make about certain people, lol. To me this is really lovely. You probably picked the name up somewhere as kids absorb info like a sponge, but even still you had your buddy, and if the afterlife exists you still do, you just can't see him. When my grandmother passed away, my brother was living out of state, so my parents and I cleaned out the house and I moved in. We found a suitcase that my dad thought had the last of my grandfather's clothes. My grandfather died a few years before my brother and I were born, but I've always felt a strong connection to him, so I was really curious to see inside the suitcase. How big was my grandfather? What did he smell like? Unfortunately, the suitcase was locked. Dad said he'd look for the key, but really, we stuffed it under the bed and forgot about it. A couple of years go by, and I stumble across the suitcase again. Dad hadn't found the key, but my brother has been learning a bit about locksmithing. I text him and ask if he would be interested in trying to open the suitcase. I am still curious about what's inside. The suitcase was locked. I tried to open it multiple times, multiple ways. Couldn't get the thing open. I took it over to my parents for my brother to try to open on his next visit. My dad and I were standing outside talking when my dad falls silent, in awe. My brother was standing in the driveway, wearing my grandfather's clothes. They fit him perfectly, except for being an inch too long in the hem. Oh, wow. How'd you get the suitcase open? I asked. It wasn't locked, he said. It opened right up. Isn't this the coolest sweater? What can I say? Those clothes were meant to be his. This is so heartwarming. Thank you. I climb up cell phone towers for a living. One time I was on top of a 350 fort tower, waiting for some test results. I got hit in the face with a small object. It hit me hard enough to bruise my eye. No idea what it was or where it came from. Part of a plane? Giant bug? No idea. A bird dropping something. Imagine getting a black eye from bird poop. That would be a great story. Birds drop their prey from up high to crack their shells, etc. So then they can eat it. I had a college professor who specialized in researching how high birds flew up before they dropped stuff to conserve energy while also ensuring that the shells actually broke on the first attempt. Quite a boring topic, but she was so passionate about it. I have gotten pooped on by a bird before, and it felt like someone threw something at my head. So I wouldn't be surprised if someone could get a black eye from bird poop. It bounced off after it hit me. It felt like some type of hard plastic. When I was in high school, I only drank coffee at work, a produce department in a grocery store. One day at home on a weekend morning, Sat or Sun, forgot which, I decided to drink coffee while home for the first time. It was a big deal because if I ever tried something new or different I'd get the stupid comments from my parents. "Oh boy, Bucko is drinking coffee. Here comes the hair on his chest, it's gonna stunt your growth, no more juice boxes etc." For some reason I cannot explain, I placed a folded up paper towel on the counter in front of the coffee pot. My mom got coffee right after me and set her cup on the paper towel, poured her coffee, and her cup split in two, spilling the coffee. The paper towel absorbed almost all of the spill. Now, we never put paper towel down like that. I don't know why I did it, and that was the only time I've ever seen a coffee cup split in two. My mom was freaked out because she thought I saw the future or something, and I cannot, to this day, explain why I did it. Could have predicted the lottery number, but hey, no coffee spill is still cool, I guess. This is my second comment that I had remembered while reading everything here. When I was 5 months pregnant with my son, I had received a check, and I was trying to use it to open a bank account. After we cashed it, we planned on eating at the Denny's next door. For some reason the check wasn't able to be verified, so we went to another bank and had no issue. We ate at different restaurant as we were short on time. Unbeknownst to us, that Denny's we were going to eat at had a shooter who shot and killed a few people, including a woman who was 5 months pregnant at the same time we were going to eat. The man apparently had a bunch of child porn and lashed out. We found out a day later, and I am still grateful that something prevented us from going. I feel awful for the people there. This was about 18 years ago. You were there, just not you. You have now entered the twilight zone. I was laying in bed one morning, and I felt pure evil on the foot of my bed. I can't explain it, but it terrified and paralyzed me, making me like a deer in headlights. My heart dropped and I felt the need to escape. It was early in the morning and my late husband was playing WoW on the computer in the living room. After a few minutes, I mustered the energy to run the fuck out of my room. I ran to my husband and grabbed him, sobbing about this thing. Not even 30 seconds later we heard the smoke alarm go off, and it smelt like sulfur and an electrical fire in the part of the room I felt that thing. Then, about a minute later, the smell passed. There was no fire, nothing amiss, and everything was fine. I didn't feel that thing anymore and it just went away. I never felt anything like that before or since, and I had a witness, so I know I didn't imagine the whole thing. I simply can't explain it. The smell and electrical fire smell and alarm could be an improper junction in your wall igniting them burning itself out. May want to get your wires looked at. And the pure evil could just have been her brain realizing something was going on before she realized it. Yep, the doom juice pumping through your body. Lost a necklace. Spent days tearing up my house, car, etc. It was not valuable, but very sentimental. My deceased father gave it to me. I thought I had thrown it away accidentally. I had driven to work, to the store, etc. in the time I was looking. I had zero friend or family in my area. I was the only person with my car keys. I was single and living alone. After days I gave up. Threw my hand up and said fuck it. The next morning I get in my car and there it was. Smack middle of my dash. It had not been there the night before, nothing was missing and the car was locked. This happened about 3 years ago or so. I was sitting in the kitchen, and it was around 10 p.m. or so. I heard a really loud thump in the basement. I live alone with 2 dogs, so any sound is somewhat frightening to me. So as I'm walking down the stairs to the basement, I hear the thumping again, in an oddly rhythmic pattern. I creak open the door into the basement bedroom, and I see my dog is just ramming his head and body into the wall, over and over. I can't explain to you how shockingly unnatural looking it was. It looked like he was controlled or something. I called him over and he stopped and came upstairs with me. The hours later, I hear the thumping again. I get out of bed again, however, when I went down to check it, it was my other dog that was ramming his head into the wall. It was like he was possessed. Scared the cheese out of me. Since then, nothing like that has happened, but what an unexplainable event. I don't know why, but that story made me so uncomfortable. Were your dogs okay and unharmed by their actions? I am a dog owner myself, and dogs sometimes do weird things like bark at nothing or look straight at the wall, but your story is terrifying. Did it only happen the one time? It was a good thing that you were home to stop them. I usually take it as a sign that we have a mouse in the house. By far the scariest, OMG. Well, I just googled it, and they said dogs pressing their heads against wall are signs of neurological disease/sickness/poisoning, etc. Maybe the dogs got into something in the basement they shouldn't have. Or something in the house affected both of the dogs. Who knows? Dogs with neuro problems is much different than ramming their heads into the walls. They will lean into the walls and hold still. It's not typically a ramming thing, and it's a repeated behavior. A one-off event is not a sign of a neurological disorder. OMG. I have way too many instances of knowing when someone is going to call me or calling them at the same time. So much so that even my husband has noticed it. I am talking random phone calls from people I haven't spoken to in a while. Once I rewatched one of my favorite movies, which had recently been put on YouTube for free. That night I had a dream about an old friend from high school I hadn't spoken to since graduation. I woke up thinking about her and typed out a message to her but didn't send it. That night she texted me, "Hey, was it you who liked that movie ___________? It's on YouTube for free now." I didn't associate her with this movie in any way, didn't even know I had told her about it. Just a coincidence, but it was sweet that she was thinking about me too. A few months ago I woke to see a tall dark figure standing over my bed, but because I suffer from sleep paralysis, I just assumed I was hallucinating, and went back to sleep. My mother-in-law was staying over that night in the spare room, and in the morning she started telling me how she woke to the feeling like she was being watched. Scared the shit out of me. It's 1:28 a.m. where I'm at, and I was about to go to bed. Guess I'm not sleeping tonight after reading this thread. I suffer from sleep paralysis too, but haven't had an episode in a while. Guess it's going to be tonight. I was on vacation with my extended family in a tourist area. The adults went out to the casinos one night, and had my eldest cousin babysit. She was 16/17. The parents joked and said, "If we win big, we'll send a limousine to pick you guys up." Fast forward a couple of hours. The apartment phone rings. The caller says he's a limousine driver here to pick up the Olver family, our last name. Shocked and excited, my eldest cousin calls her mom's mobile phone to confirm everything. Confused, her mom says that they definitely have not sent any limousine. Turns out another family in the same apartment building with the same last name had a limousine called that night, and the driver accidentally dialed our apartment number instead of theirs. Seriously, what are the chances? Cousin, OMG. Universe, psyche. When I was in high school, I was in a production of The Little Shop of Horrors. We had a very, very small budget and depended on local shops and thrift stores in the town to give us donations and leftovers for costumes, props, etc. For this play, naturally, we needed a shit ton of plants, so we got some old flowers from the local florist shops, and some fake stuff from our own stash of props. The local college even offered to let us perform on one of their stages, so we would have better quality lighting and seating as a favor. It was great. For a week we did this play, and all went well. The last night we ran the show was the night I saw something that I, to this day, cannot rationalize or explain. I had a relatively large part in the play, so most nights, when I wasn't on stage, I was off stage trying to catch my breath and rest a little until my cue came. The last night we ran the show, I decided to watch my peers from behind the set to try to soak in some memories. It was my last play before graduating. From behind the set, as I was peeking out through a window into the flower shop, I noticed small, measured movements on stage a distance away from the actors. I looked more closely and it looked like a flower in a terracotta pot was undulating. Its petals were slowly opening and closing, in a measured rhythm. I thought I was seeing things, so I literally rubbed my eyes to clear them. Nope. That flower was fucking moving. I stared at it for a good minute, maybe a minute and a half, trying to figure out what the hell I was looking at. I knew it wasn't a fake flower, or something mechanic. I had helped set the stage as a prop manager every performance night. That was a real flower. I also had been working with this set and props for weeks, and knew which ones were fakes, and which ones were real, donated flowers. This was real flower in a pot on stage, moving. The best I could figure was that the heat of the lights was causing it to. Know what? I couldn't go investigate like I so badly wanted to because we were in the middle of a scene. The next day, we had so much help from college-age theater kids, and our own crew that the set got cleared before I could find that particular flower. I told one person about it, and they wrote me off like I must have been seeing things. I get it, I thought I was too. But I stared long enough and looked so closely to make sure it wasn't just me that, well, I am sure it wasn't just me. It's not scary or even that interesting, but I absolutely cannot explain what I saw. In fact, if anyone has ideas, I'd love to hear them. It was just the plant from Little Shop of Horrors. Don't worry, he just wanted some blood. Okay, so one night I woke up late at night to see my dad standing in my doorway holding a knife. I slightly lifted my head and looked at him, and the second I woke he closed the door and walked away. I never brought it up, even thinking about it kinda freaks me out. Nothing ever came from this, and I have no idea why he did this. He probably wanted you to have a brownie before you went to bed. Maybe he heard a noise elsewhere in the house and got up to check and had a knife for protection, and what you saw was him checking on you. When my sisters and I were little, we used to spend the night at our grandparents' house quite frequently. It was just a tiny house, so there probably wasn't much need, but I remember my grandpa would always check in on us before turning in. He died in December of 2018. I was living with my mom then, having only just gotten out of a bad relationship in September. Anyway, the night we got his urn back, I remember being woken up because my door opened on its own. Something that had never happened before because the door was heavy and sat crooked in its frame, so it wasn't easy to open. And yet it just did. Coincidentally, on the same night Grandpa's urn came home. I am not a huge paranormal buff or anything like that, but I couldn't help feeling like maybe he was checking in on me. One time me, my brother and mom were in a McDonald's drive-thru getting flurries, and my brother pointed to the sky through the car windshield, and there was a bike in the sky with a man just riding on it. It had balloons floating above it like an up. All three of us saw it. It wasn't imaginary. Although my brother forgot this happened, he was pretty young at the time. Me and my mom have not forgot. I thought you were going to say you went to McDonald's and the ice cream machine was actually working. Luckily this thread has a serious tag. It was just DreamWorks at it again. ET to leak. In my early 20s, I had a lot going on in my life. I had left school, had started a new career, was engaged to my high school sweetheart, and my anxiety was building up. This was in the mid-80s, and I wore a watch. It was a gold Timex analog watch that my father gave to me. I always set the watch on my bedside table before going to sleep. I was becoming very anxious about deadlines, and I found myself constantly checking my watch to make sure I didn't fall behind with anything. One morning, I woke up and reached to my bedside table, and my watch was missing. I checked around the table. I crawled over the edge on the bed and looked upside down under the bed. No watch. I got up and looked around the base of the bedside table. No watch. I showered, got dressed, checked my yesterday clothes pockets. No watch. I checked in other parts of the house. No watch. I asked my fiancée about if she had seen it. She had not, and to this day, I know she was telling the truth. The strange thing is that this morning was the morning of my first day feeling like all anxiety was lifted from me. I felt 100% better about everything, and my stress level was even better than it had ever been. I never, ever found the watch. And I've never worn one since. Did your fiancé leave it on the kangaroo on your bedside table? I was on public transit one time, and saw someone that was just about the same height as me, and looked to have my body type. I just shrugged it off at the moment. As a taller girl with a slightly bigger frame, it's not that rare. The only seat is the one directly across from her, so I sit down and put my headphones in. I tend to people watch while I ride to school, so I started to do exactly that. I take a closer look at the girl in front of me, same shade, cut and color hair. Huh. Weird. Her head is down, so I can't see her face, but when the bell dings to tell that it's the next stop, she looks up. Oh. My Lord. She has my face. She looks up at me and blinks twice. Same color eyes. I have very odd eyes, so brown they look black. Her eyes are so brown they look black. She stands up and walks off the bus. I turn to see her go, sure my eyes are playing tricks on me. She's gone. It's like she walked off the bus, and just fell into a wormhole. I look at the spot we stopped. No girl there. Was creeped out for the entire week. Oh, man. Doppelganger stories are my favorite. You're definitely not alone with that experience. I have never seen mine. But other people have. Like they saw me in one room, and then in another room. Maybe we do kind of weave in and out of different dimensions. I have a dissociative disorder, maybe I do actually go away. So interesting. My roommate found a strange key in their car. They did not drive anyone around, car was locked, windows rolled up, and a key that went to nothing that we owned was sitting perfectly in the middle of the passenger seat. When I was 10ish, my mother, sister, and I moved into an apartment. 2-bed, 2-bath, but from the start I couldn't handle using the bathroom in the room my sister and I shared. Something just felt wrong in there, like the bathroom was breathing, and I was being watched, so I used my mom's. Eventually my sister refused to sleep in our room at all, and moved her mattress into the living room. I got sick a lot during the year we lived there. At night I sometimes woke to the sound of footsteps approaching my bed from the bathroom, and when I would sit up to look the sound always stopped. I begged my sister and her friends to keep the bathroom door closed after coming in to use it, but they'd often forget, and I'd wake late at night to a black hole of an open door, and that breathing sensation. Eventually my sister's boyfriend, who often spent the night, told her he sometimes saw shadows looming over my bed at night. My religious grandma visited once, stepped into my room and started speaking tongues. I don't know, it all sounds superstitious and hokey, but that place messed with me until we moved. I would be so mad if my sister forgot to close the bathroom door, especially since she moved her mattress to sleep somewhere else. It's like saying they wanted the monster to get me, LOL. Speaking in tongues aside, this sounds like carbon monoxide poisoning. Or mold. That shit can be psychoactive. One time I was at a super old, but also very high-end restaurant in my hometown. There have always been rumors the place was haunted, as the building is over 100 years old, and it's been known to have a few ghost sightings. I went to use the restroom, but the whole time I was there, it felt like I was being watched. I went to wash my hands, looked in the mirror, nothing weird. Looked at my hands and saw blood everywhere, all over my hands, all over the sink, it was on my clothes, it was everywhere. I looked up in the mirror really fast and looked back at my hands, totally normal, clean hands, nothing weird at all. I left the restroom shaken. I've never been to that restaurant since. Every single relative that was close to me, that has passed away, has woken me up with some sort of presence, near the foot of my bed. I'll also fall back asleep to lucid, vivid dreams of them. It always happens the night of passing. Because of it, I'd already know they passed away before I got the call in the morning. There seems to be a need for a strong bond for it to occur. The first night I had to sleep in our bed after my wife passed away, I was awakened early in the morning, somewhere around 2:30 a.m., and I thought she was sitting at the foot of the bed, arms lovingly around my knees. I even felt like she was giving me a goodbye hug of sorts. And somehow I felt that she was smiling and happy. I bolted up in bed, but she was not there, of course. But it was such an odd feeling. I've chalked it down to prolonged lack of sleep. She was on a hospice unit for 3 days, and I was with her the whole time. Plus 3 months prior to that, and the grief/trauma of her passing. I had to make terms with it, accept it as real, and move on. The only person I've told around me is my wife, and she understands, as she's had phenomena happen to her as well. For instance, when her mom died, we had to drive across the country to clear her apartment. During our drive, one day we got into the discussion of closing accounts, probate, and not knowing her SSN. That night, she had a dream where her mom flashed the SSN card to her. She woke up, wrote it down on a paper, told me about it, and when we got there, we found her SSN card. Exact match. I'd love to see a photo of the shock and disbelief on our faces when that happened. I dream things that happen years in the future. Not even important events, just random interactions at random points in the future with people I haven't met yet at seemingly random locations. It's also happened multiple times and isn't just a one-off occurrence, which could have maybe been passed off as coincidence. I have this sometimes too, but not a lot anymore. One time I was playing with my brother, and I was using the cloth my mother almost never uses to play with him. The moment I picked up the cloth, I felt a heavy déjà vu feeling, and was like, hey WTF, I dreamed about this. Yup, exactly what happens with me. I just go about my day as normal, and without even realizing it, the dream just sort of happens. Man, I would sometimes get really scared because the future dreams would mix with my nightmares, and the rest of the day, I would think something bad would happen. I believe déjà vu is either 1. Proof time is not linear, or 2. Your brain falsely signaling a memory response to make you believe you've seen/experienced something before, but it's just a brain short circuit. What's something that you've dreamt of that's happened later on? When I was in high school, I was driving back at night with my sister, and was just kinda watching the cars in front of us when one of them full-on glitched. I don't know how to put it in words, but it kinda looked like this, but with a car flash. I remember just staring in shock for a few moments, then asking my sister if she saw it too. She didn't. It was probably just a weird trick of the light since it was at night, and car headlights, and whatnot, but it freaked me out enough that I still question it sometimes. My now ex-wife and I moved in with her dad after we relocated to a new state. He has this huge house that he had converted from a barn. I took a job working overnights shortly after we got there. On my days off, I'd stay up all night to keep my sleep schedule. One night we were playing Yahtzee at the kitchen table. We both heard someone walk from our bedroom, right above the kitchen, down the hallway to the top of the stairs. I got up and nearly ran to the stairs to see who was up there, because it should have been nobody. I went up the stairs and down the hall to our bedroom, checking the other rooms along the way. No one in the other rooms, no one in our bedroom, and I passed no one on my way up. I'm not saying it was ghosts or whatever, but 20 years later, I still have no real explanation for those sounds. Yesterday, upon the stair, I met a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. Oh, how I wish he'd go away. When I was a kid, I had a lava lamp. When it was on, it was getting really hot. Since it was yellow, I was using it to drawing at night. So I was sitting there, drawing, when all of a sudden the lamp turned itself off. I started panicking because I am really afraid of the dark, and I started calling my mom for help. She came into my room, and when I explained the situation, she said the lamp was never turned on. I was sitting in the dark all this time. I touched the lamp and it was cold. Okay, that's really fucking creepy. My man, you have night vision. Attention. There is now a sub for all further discussions on this thread for better convenience. Join or / the light in the woods for a tidier way of following this story. This is a true story. For context, I live in the mountains and have a window in my bathroom that faces across the street and into the woods. In those woods is a big blue house with a porch that wraps around that is way too high off the ground for anyone to get to without a ladder. One night I was awoken by the need to go to the bathroom, so I did what most people would do, and went to the bathroom. While I was in there, I heard the slightest tapping on the wall facing the outdoors. I ignored it for a bit until it turned into a tapping and scratching. I put my ear against the wall, and it sounded like an odd animal of some kind. So I stood up to look out the window when I saw it. Way across the street, standing next to the porch of the neighbors, was something that I do not know what the hell it was. First it seemed to face the house it was next to, but then the tapping got a little louder and suddenly stopped. Without skipping a beat, this thing turned and faced towards me, and I was paralyzed. All it had on its head was a big red light that shined right at me. It felt like it was staring into my soul. I could not move. I'm not one to believe in aliens or ghosts, but that is something I cannot explain even if I did. If you want pictures, I can post a link. Edit, people want pictures, so here is the link. The picture where the light is smallest is when it was facing away. Link for the pic in the daytime with an arrow pointing to where it was. Another link. If you guys would like, I can make an unlisted video going into detail about all the events, and show exact locations along with answering all questions, if that would help solve this. Why do I always read this sort of thing late at night? Same, I question my life choices. That's a burglar with a red headlamp trying to jimmy open a window or something. Red light is less visible from a distance, and will preserve your night vision. Edit, and the tapping was chiseling, maybe at window glazing. This house is about 200 to 300 feet away from the window. It was not on the porch, it was something y'all and standing. Oh, I stand corrected. It was Mothman. I wrote a paper on him once, got an A, and it was the geography teacher. Your geography teacher was Mothman. So was someone over there using a hammer to fix something on the house with a headlamp so they could see? Maybe saw the light in your bathroom window and turned around to look at it. Someone using a hammer really far away might sound like a light tapping to you in your house. I kept the light off in the bathroom the whole time. The tapping was on my house, not theirs, and it wasn't a headlamp because it stayed to still, and plus there were no lights on at the house the thing was at. Whoa. That gave me chills just reading that. In the pic you linked I can distinguish a body and an arm, and the red light was coming from the face. They were clearly looking at you, but I can't see anything else. What do you think it could be? I am reading these and freaking myself out, and then all of a sudden a stupid spam call comes through, nearly pissed myself. Summer 2003, northern Adirondack Mountains near Saranac Lake. Around 7 p.m., myself and a group of friends witnessed a very strange object in the sky. The object was dark matte black color and triangular shape. The object was roughly 75 to 100 feet across, flying very slowly over a lake, and about 30 feet above the trees. The object made absolutely no sound. It did not have any visible markings or lights. It slowly flew from one mountain top, over a lake, then over another mountain top. A distance of around 3 miles. Once it reached that mountain top, it was out of our line of sight. This event lasted around 15 to 20 minutes. All of us experienced a sense of dread, unable to do anything except to stand and stare at this thing. I wanted to run, get in the truck, and get out of there, but my body and mind were frozen fear. And time seemed to slow down like you would experience in an adrenaline rush, injury, car accident, fight, etc. Discussing the event many times with my friends, we all remember the same exact details about the object, compared sketches of the event with each other, and all experienced the frozen in fear effect. We were not under the influence of drugs or alcohol. At that time, we were all around the age of 20. 7 males, 3 females, and 2 dogs. As far as I can tell, the dogs were unaware or unaffected. I believe we witnessed an alien craft not of this earth, possibly an extra-dimensional object with mind-altering properties. But what kind of sketches did the dogs produce? After a suicide attempt, I was left suffocating and barely conscious on the floor. It was late, and I was alone. I was slipping away, felt like I was falling asleep or something. Suddenly this girl shakes me awake. She looked like she was in her early 20s. Told me off, saying that I am just like all the other dumbass, and that I need to get all the shit in gear. She said something about having so much more to give. Then she left. I honestly believe I was brought back by Azrael, the angel of death. Since that night I've straightened my shit out, gotten married, and am living happily. Something disguised itself as our dog. Started when my husband woke up in the middle of the night to see our dog at the foot of our bed. Their eyes were dark and their mouth didn't look quite right, but other than that, it looked exactly like our dog, Noodle. This thing spoke in a deep voice and said, "Go back to sleep, I'll see you in the morning." Repeatedly. Our household was hearing unexplained growling throughout the night coming from the hallways around 3 a.m. Both dogs were asleep near us, so it wasn't them. Husband would see this thing a few more times in the middle of the night with our dogs. At one point, I saw it myself. Had my dogs locked up in the room while we ate. From the corner of my sight, I see my dog peeking around the corner of the hallway that lead to our room. Thought the boys somehow got out of the room, so I check on them. Nothing in the hallway, and door is still closed. At random times, our dog's hair will stand up and they'll growl and bark and seemingly nothing. My husband saged the house, didn't work. My roommate did it and it went away, so maybe it was attached to her. Anyways, still can't explain this. Never heard of a spirit or demon, or whatever disguising itself as a pet. You seem way too fucking casual about this. Way too fucking casual. Are you kidding me? Seriously? My hair is standing up. You wake up in the middle of the night to see a talking demon wearing your dog's skin as a disguise. It tells you to go back to sleep. You listen to it. Oh my God, I cannot with you. Whoever you are, wherever you are, good luck to you. Tell me more, please. Did this thing hang out with your dogs? Did the dogs know something was up? Did it talk again? Was it like chilling with your dogs on the dog mat, and directly making eye contact with you when your dogs were doing dog stuff? All of this is killing me. It's late where I am, and I need to sleep, but you're not quite right. Dog is fucking me up, man. I am a complete pussy with this type of shit, and I even noticed my husband treating our dog a little differently now since. I was literally petrified and hid under my blanket as the growling was going on. As for my husband, the one who it talked to, he basically passed out asleep right after it talked to him. My God. So how was it acting differently? Here's the scene I am seeing in my head. You're sitting down eating dinner, dogs all locked away in the rooms. Forks clinking on the plate, small talk, the works. You get a funny feeling. You glance over and see a shadow, it looks like a dog. Slowly you see the dog's head peek around the corner, but it's not like a dog. It's looking for you. It's looking at you, and it's examining the situation and your place in it. Normally a dog would just bound into the room, but not this thing. It's hiding and trying to make sure you don't see it so it can watch you. Did I get the vibe right? Also, how was its mouth and eyes wrong? Like something was wearing its skin. What happened to your dog during all this? Was it okay locked away somewhere, or did this being take over your dog's body? We live in a small apartment, so our hallway is right beside the dining room. I am not very spiritual or anything like that, so I don't usually get weird feelings about stuff like this. Was just seated at the table, and I see Noodle slowly peek around the corner of the hall. Just his head was viable, but when I noticed his head ducked back. I didn't think anything bad about it, and just assumed that maybe I didn't close the door all the way. I stood up to put him back in the room, but nothing there, and the door was closed. Looked exactly like Noodle, no off features like my husband saw that night. As for the odd features my husband described, he said his eyes were human-like and very dark, and his mouth was longer, if that makes sense. Like pulled back to his ears. Not entirely sure what he meant by this, but he said something similar to one of the creatures in Beetlejuice. Cut. Wow. You are still with us. Thanks for being such a nice person. As long as you are here, why not like this video and subscribe to our channel? Also, you can press the bell icon, so you won't miss any future uploads.